Well, schools, Diesel, are now free to begin paying their athletes directly. That's right, schools can pay athletes, and every coach who's ever said, including Dabo Sweeney, that the day schools pay athletes, I am going to retire and be done with coaching. The day has come. This news broke over the weekend, Diesel, and it is what we are leading the show off with on this Overreaction Monday. It is the dawn of a new era in college sports, brought to you by a multi-billion-dollar legal settlement that was formally approved on Friday. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's sitting across from me for the first time in a long time in this studio is Diesel.
Hey, guys.
He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson, and it is so good to be with you on this Overreaction Monday. And we already have JD, Shane Barrett, Toloing on the stream where you can watch the show. But Diesel, here we are in this new era of college athletics. Did you ever think we would get to this moment?
It felt like this moment was inevitable for a long time. I don't know, Cole, if this new settlement fixes more problems or creates more problems, because it's so incredibly complex, right? There's so many moving parts to this. There's retroactive compensation for players who felt like they deserved something they didn't get in the past. You can now pay current athletes. There's some sort of exemption that you can put student athletes who are now over we don't have scholarship limits anymore. We have roster caps, and if you're over that, you can stay around but not be a lot of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me yet. But this thing will continue to unfold, and we'll learn more about it together.
You know what, Diesel, it is, I think there are a lot of people, many people who are in the same boat as you, that they're still learning, right, as the information's coming to them. But I think it's now easier to have this conversation or start this conversation by saying this. Okay, here we are, June 9th, 2025. This new settlement has been approved. It's passed. Tell me who can't pay athletes. I think that's where it becomes easier to understand, right? Who now can't pay athletes? Is the answer nobody? Can everybody now? I mean, is that where we are?
It depends on what NIL Go has to say about it. Now there's a clearinghouse for NIL payments over the value of $600. Why $600? I don't know. Why not make it $500? Why not make it $1,000? Why $600? That's just a weird number. But what kind of deals are going to be rejected, right? I mean, isn't that limiting a player's ability to make money off of their name, image, and likeness if you're rejecting NIL opportunities? What does this mean for the multi-million-dollar pay-for-play inducements? Does that mean those have to pass through this same clearinghouse? I don't know, man. There's what happens to all the collectives? People have spent the last 3, 4, 5 years putting together collectives where they could scrounge and beg money from you, Tolos, who love your individual schools. Collectives are hitting you up saying, hey, can we have some money? Schools are hitting you up saying, hey, can we have some money? What happens with all of that apparatus? Do they get sort of folded into the institution? Do they die on the vine? What happens?
Want to hear from you at 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. Diesel, to give our Tolos a little background on this settlement. Judge Claudia Wilkin approved the deal between the NCAA, its most powerful conferences, and lawyers representing all Division I athletes. The House versus NCAA settlement ends 3 separate federal antitrust lawsuits, all of which claimed the NCAA was illegally limiting the earning power of college athletes. So it looks like all of the lawsuits may be put to an end as of now. The long-awaited decision, Diesel, comes less than a month remaining before schools are planning to start cutting checks to athletes on July 1st. So that's important to note, okay? This decision comes a month before schools plan to cut checks to athletes beginning July 1st. Both sides presented their arguments for approving the settlement at a hearing in early April. And Diesel, a few months later, here we are. While college sports leaders have been making plans for a major shift in how they do business, this quick, tight turnaround time means schools and conferences will have to hustle to establish the infrastructure needed to enforce these new rules. Because ultimately, Diesel, with this happening, with these new rules now on the playing deck, we're only a couple of months away from college football. I mean, it's here. You've got guys that you got to pay like less than a month from today, so here we are.
Yeah, where's all this money going to come from? Is it going to? Are people now going to feel less icky about where college football and the funding is coming from? I don't know, man. Like I said, there's so many layers to this. How is it going to affect the little schools versus the bigger schools? That's one thing that has me concerned as a fan of a G5 program, right? How is it going to affect the Coastal Carolina, the App State, the Georgia Southern, the Charlotte, East Carolinas of the world? You know, are they not going to be able to afford to do this in the future? Will that ultimately end up being not a recruiting inducement, but a reason why a kid refuses to go to a G5 program because there's just no money there? There's no resources.
Yeah. JD asked on the YouTube stream, Cole, are you growing a mustache? You're going to look like a 90s NASCAR driver for sure. JD, what's funny is, you know, I've always had this small mustache, but when you do eliminate some other parts of your facial hair, Diesel, everybody focuses on what? The hair that's left.
Yeah.
JD, I shaved. I have, for the first time, Diesel, today, I'm beardless for, probably since college.
So did you shave like down to the skin because you got a 5 o'clock shadow going again? You just buzzed it.
Buzzed it, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to completely shave it and look like I was getting, just being thrown in a mortuary or something, you know.
if you're not by the way, you can jump on the stream,
yeah.
Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at The Fan Upstate. Join the other Tolos, JD and Shane Barrett and JB.
Shane Barrett Tolos, from Tuscaloosa watching
Frank,
the show.
who I think Frank, this might be the first time we've ever seen Frank in the stream. Welcome. He's on Facebook. The rules of our system here are that you can only see the messages posted on the platform that you're on. So if you're on Facebook, you can only see messages that are posted on Facebook. But we now have this handy-dandy new live feature chat, new live chat in the bottom corner of the screen where you can see everybody's messages. But if you have ever seen the movie Talladega Nights?
Yes,
I'm sure most of our Tolos have. Cole's sort of got a Cal Naughton Jr. thing going on. He's got the camo hat.
Yeah.
And he's got the mustache that
not
comes
quite as
down.
big as his, yeah.
It comes down a little bit past the crease in his lips and kind of comes down to the bottom lip.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's shaved everywhere else.
That's right. So, and he was great in that movie.
Don't call it a porn star stash because it's not.
Yeah,
it's a 90s NASCAR stash.
90s NASCAR. I like it. Maybe also welcome DB to
Davey
the stream.
Allison to you.
Yeah. Well, they'll take it. I was told this weekend it makes me look younger. So look, I'll take that. I don't want to look older.
And it fun? You look like a 20-something in the 1970s. I think my dad had that same mustache. I don't know if that makes you feel older or younger, but
that's great.
Everything old that will be new again, and so we're bringing these things back.
Let's go to the phone lines and get this college football conversation, or not just college football, but college athletics conversation a little bit deeper. Well, I don't know if it's going to go deeper or side railed or derailed. Diesel Dewey wants to weigh in at 844-FAN phone. That's 844-326-3663. What's up, Dewey?
Yes. First of all, you should not be paying these athletes, these college little 17, 18-year-olds to be playing football, soccer, rugby, whatever they're golf, baseball, softball, pickleball, swimming, nothing. They
Why?
don't know how to handle millions of dollars. How in the world are you going to teach them skills? They'll be blowing their money. They can't handle that type of responsibility. And then their coaches, they ain't going to listen to their coaches. You see how these professionals, they don't listen to their coaches. It's because they think they make hundreds of millions of dollars, so their coaches can't tell them nothing. So when they're making more than Dabo Sweeney, and some Clemson guy making more than Dabo Sweeney, Dabo tells him to do push-ups. He says, I ain't doing push-ups. I made $10 million. You got to do my push-ups. It's not going to work. Yeah, Dabo needs to retire because he just put his foot in his mouth, and it's time for him to take his nerdy self and retire. And it's just not going to work. And it's a travesty, and no one's going to want to go pro no more. It's going to hurt the professional industry, NFL, NBA, baseball, professional swimming, rugby, all of them. They're going to hurt.
Professional swimming, thanks to it. Do we care about professional swimming, Diesel? Is that where we are?
I mean, there's a couple athletes out there that, I'd like to see go pro.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we can talk about Haley Van Lith, but whatever it may be, right? Look, regardless of what your opinion is, Diesel, on this, it's groundbreaking. It's not as groundbreaking as when NIL surfaced, 2-3 years ago now, however long it's been, right? It's not quite as groundbreaking as that. However, it is groundbreaking because now the university themselves, and you mentioned a whole plethora of elements that we hadn't even touched on, paying former athletes. Now the actual university themselves will be able to pay athletes.
Yeah, so that's why I was thinking earlier that the NIL collectives that already have a jump start, not that the schools haven't been planning for this eventuality, they've been thinking about this eventuality, but they can have their own fundraising arms, but the collectives are going to start influxing a whole bunch of cash into the university to then redistribute and pay out to student athletes. One thing I do like about this, Cole, and everybody's really kind of caught up in the things they don't like about this, and we still need to know how this actually plays out. But I mentioned it earlier, NIL Go, payments over $600 must pass through a new clearinghouse called NIL Go, managed by a central management company called Deloitte, 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 not sure if that's how you pronounce it or not, to ensure fair market value and centralized reporting. So I don't know if that means that they're going to say, here's a minimum amount for a particular action, or if they're going to say, here is a standardized amount for a particular action. For example, if we're talking about social media posts, you got an athlete who signs a deal to do 10 posts on Instagram for Coca-Cola, whatever it is. Any athlete who signs to do something similar to that should get paid a fair market value for that exact same action. Now, does that mean that the minimum is $5,000 for these 10 posts? Or does that mean that everybody, regardless of whether you're getting a deal with Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, Celsius energy drink, whatever it may be, you're all going to get paid the same amount because you're all doing essentially the same work?
It really is interesting. And JD, if you had thoughts on this earlier in the stream, drop them in there again so we can get to them because we did kind of get sidetracked. But drop them in. I do want to get to Mark. Mark says, I think athletes should get paid because they can't work a job, but why not put it all in a pool and distribute it evenly among the players? Diesel, I think because
of greed?
Well,
because you got a quarterback who says, I'm not going to make the same amount as my backup lineman.
And I think, though, when you and I have talked to people and heard from people about this, I think that's kind of the common theme, right? Who was it? I think it was Steve Spurrier who said the same thing. Like, that's kind of the common theme. People want there to be either a cap, and maybe a cap kind of fixes the issue that you just brought up with greed, but being paid evenly, it's tough because, to your point, how do you pay the quarterback the same amount of money you pay the third string lineman who got to deal with, the chicken place down the road?
Sure.
So it's tough, but I will say the ones who have been around college football, like the likes of Steve Spurrier and Nick Saban, Diesel, they do want a cap. So how do we now, with what this new news has brought to light, how do we ever get to a cap? I hate to be Debbie Downer on this Monday, but how do you even find the possibility of having a cap with this new system? I mean, you're going to have, like I said a minute ago, everybody can pay anybody.
Well, if you cap it, then you're restricting their ability to make money off of their name, image, and likeness, which will get sued and struck down in court. There is no cap. So anybody who keeps saying the word cap, stop talking about cap what? Captain Crunch? Captain America? What are you talking about? Because
I like Captain
there is no cap on this. You cannot cap the earning that these kids are making.
Sure.
Because they will sue and they will win. We know this now, right? There's the NCAA is effectively dead. There's a whole new administration, College Sports Commission. The College Sports Commission will govern the implementation, including compliance reporting and revenue sharing rules. So the NCAA is effectively dead.
Woo.
We haven't even talked about that. The NCAA is dead.
Greg Sankey might be happy to hear you say that, right?
I mean, they were feckless. They were sitting on their hands doing nothing. When it comes to football, they felt like they still had some semblance of control over baseball and the NCAA basketball tournament. I mean, do we even still call it the NCAA basketball tournament anymore? Or is it going to be the College Sports Commission basketball tournament?
I also think it's important to note, Diesel, that we haven't touched on this. Amateurism is completely dead. Like, completely dead.
There's no going back.
No, this is not an amateur sport anymore. College sports aren't really even college sports now. Think about it. College sports, they're in college, but that's not, college, it's not amateurism. And by the way, the NCAA Diesel will pay nearly $2.8 billion in back damages over the next 10 years to athletes who competed in college at any time from 2016 through present day. Moving forward, each school can pay its athletes up to a certain limit. Talking about cap for the money that's coming from the schools and the universities, the annual cap is expected to start at roughly $20.5 million per school in 2025 and increase every year during the decade-long deal. These new payments are in addition to scholarships and other benefits the athletes already receive. I do believe that when you talk about back damages, athletes, Diesel, who have competed from 2016 to now, you're getting $2.8 billion from the NCAA. That's going to be interesting in how they determine which former athletes get how much money, right? How in the world do you determine that? How do you determine, Taj Boyd?
Yeah.
I know he was prior to 2016, but Johnny Manziel, right?
Well, we had that conversation with Don Munson a couple of weeks back where he said Clemson's already figured out how they're doing this.
Yeah.
They are going to see how much money a sport brings in, and they will distribute that $20.5 million up to $20.5 million based on the amount of revenue that a sport brings in. And, a lot of sports, they all bring in revenue. They don't all turn a profit, right? So football obviously brings in the most revenue. Basketball, probably the distant second, and then way back, you start getting into baseball, softball, women's basketball. Outside of that, maybe soccer sells a couple tickets. For some schools, most, they don't sell really any tickets. Outside of that, Cole, how will college golfers benefit from this at all?
We talked to a lot of former.
There's no spectators buying tickets for college golf. So how do you look at the amount of revenue that they bring in unless they start hiring individual fundraisers for each sport? And then you could say, well, that counts as golf revenue if Clemson Golf or if South Carolina Golf strikes a deal with Titleist, for example.
JB on the YouTube stream asked, will these guys still get offered scholarships to come to school, or they be offered a contract like an NFL player or per se a minor league NFL player? I don't know how. I've heard multiple people throw this up or bring this up. I just don't know how you're going to be able to offer scholarships in certain sports. I can see how it works with golf, kind of like you're mentioning, but how do you offer scholarships if you're Alabama to the football program with this new? There's still some
the question
murky
is,
waters there.
Yeah, how does it actually play out? We can read the verbiage of what it's saying, but what does that actually mean? How does it actually play out? The cap on scholarships per sport is lifted. So there's no 85 scholarships for football anymore. Roster size caps are being introduced alongside full scholarship requirements for rostered players. So it feels like you're just kind of changing the semantics on this to say anybody that's on the roster has to have a full scholarship, regardless of it's football, basketball, baseball, whatever. But now we're capping your overall roster size. And so if that roster size is 85, that basically means, sorry, walk-ons, you're not on the roster anymore. That's going to be a big-time blow to the history and the makeup of college athletics, because walk-ons are not going to exist anymore because they will be at their roster cap. They will not be allowed to put you on roster scholarship. You know, there's all those great videos of somebody who's been out there busting their hump for a year or two or whatever it is, and now the team's gathered together and the coach says, congratulations, son, you're now on scholarship. That's gone. We're not doing that anymore.
Mark asked on the Facebook stream, Diesel, have we heard about non-revenue sports being eliminated in college? He says he hates that these athletes are getting paid on their potential before they play a game, and I agree with that on that aspect. We've heard people say things about non-revenue sports.
It seems possible.
It stinks. I mean, that's a tragic blow if that does come to fruition, Diesel, but the reality is, here we are in a world in 2025 where if you're not contributing, if you're not bringing anything to the table, are they going to keep you around?
Yeah. And if we're going to eliminate one sport, now we're going to have to eliminate two sports because of Title IX, right? You can't just say, sorry, women's field hockey, you don't make any money. Yeah. You're gone. Now you have to say, sorry, women's field hockey and sorry, men's tennis, for example.
Furman was just ahead of the game.
That's
all they were. They were just ahead.
God. And, Cole, we haven't even talked about, there's another element to paying student athletes and paying schools that we're going to get into a little bit later on in the show. I think coming up at the 4 o'clock segment, there is a fun new way for you to make sure that you are putting money in student athletes' pockets. It's not going to cost you anything. Kind of. That's coming up at 4 o'clock. But on the other side of the break, Cole, let's get into the NBA Finals. Game number 2. We're tied at 1, and we're heading back to Indy. We'll talk about it next on the Fan Upstate. SGA, more like SG, hey, maybe we ought to guard that guy. Because when SGA gets hot, he is unbeatable on a court. Just like we were talking about Tyrese Halliburton after game number 1, and SGA was phenomenal in game 1 of that series too. But SGA just says, oh yeah, you want to talk about Halliburton? Let's talk about me for a minute. And he drops a 34-point performance, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, 4 steals, passes Allen Iverson's 72-point record for any player's first 2 NBA Finals games. SGA was a force to be reckoned with in game number 2.
He was a force, and Diesel, I am going to do what this Monday is for, and I'm going to overreact, and I'm going to tell you when it comes to SGA and the Thunder, and we're going to do a whole segment of your overreactions at 5 o'clock, Tolos. But I'm going to tell you, Diesel, that this series is over.
Oh.
This series is over.
I mean, we're going back to Indy. A little home court advantage for the Pacers.
What I saw last night, I watched Oklahoma City dominate at the rim. I watched Oklahoma City rebound like they had not rebounded in game 1. I watched Oklahoma City pass and pass and pass. And guess what?
Yeah.
Pass. They were unselfish. They were really good last night, and they weren't good in game 1. I just think when they're playing at their peak, when they're playing at their best, these two teams aren't close. Last night's game, once they kind of got a lead, they kind of nurtured that lead a little bit, Diesel. And you know what I think they learned last night? I think they learned that we can't just come out and take the first knockout punch. We've got to knock them out all the way for 4 quarters because we can't let that Tyrese Halliburton guy have a chance late.
If you've ever seen the movie Zombieland, double tap was one of his rules. You got to double tap to make sure that corpse is dead, right? You cannot give them an opportunity to get up off the floor there and come back at you. Now, I think Oklahoma City, number one, they had an epic collapse in the 4th quarter of game number 1. But for game number 2, I think they learned from their mistakes in game number 1. They distributed the ball. I mean, yeah, SGA had a monster performance, but they had 5 guys with 15 points or more. And that's something I've harped on for these entire NBA playoffs. That if you can get 4 or 5 guys on your roster, 6 guys is better, scoring 10 points or more, you're more than likely going to win the game. And that was the hallmark of what the Pacers did so well in game number 1.
Yeah.
The Thunder learned from that in game number 2. And I think the Pacers were a little bit guilty of maybe getting a little high on their own supply, feeling themselves just a little bit, thinking that this team was just destined to go out and win games. And they didn't really change up what they do. But the Oklahoma City Thunder did a phenomenal job adjusting to the way that the Pacers play.
I'll say this, Diesel. I think 2 things here. Number 1, I think having the best player on the floor completely changes the series, right? For Oklahoma City in a 7-game series to say, hey, we've got the best player in SGA, and it really doesn't matter what you do. You can't stop him. I think that's a tremendous boost to playing a 7-game series because ultimately, it's going to wear down. Last night, the Pacers had no answer for SGA, and I mean none. Like, it didn't matter. His moves last night were just incredible. The way he's able to finish at the rim, also his mid-range game. I love seeing a guy bring back the mid-range game like that. I'll tell you this, though. What's most impressive about Oklahoma City, especially last night, while Diesel SGA is consistent and unguardable, what's most impressive are the others. The others, because we all know that Indiana, Oklahoma City, they've got 2 guys that are really good in SGA and Tyrese Halliburton, but the others have to show up in the finals, and the others showed up last night, and they showed up big time for Oklahoma City. So not only do I think they have the better player, I think they have the better supporting cast. Chet Holmgren was incredible, especially around the rim at the paint last night. He had 15 points, 6 of 11. He's a guy that's going to rebound. He had how many total rebounds? 6 defensively, 6 total rebounds last night. They out-rebounded themselves in the first half than they did in game 1. What I mean is Oklahoma City rebounded the ball better in the first half last night than they did in the entire game one against Indiana. They just played a lot better as a team, as a unit last night. Jalen Williams was fantastic as well. And when you get guys like Brandon Carlson off the bench scoring 20, they're just tough to defend, man. They really are.
It's not a sexy stat to talk about, Cole, but you and I both know, especially in tight ball games, teams that can hit their free throws ultimately end up winning a lot more games than they don't. And OKC, they got to the line a lot, and they hit their free throws a lot to the tune of 88% as a team in game number 2. Compare that to game number 1, where they shot a high percentage. They just didn't get to the line nearly as much. So it seemed like that was a big-time focus. The differential there was 10, by the way, in game number 2. So you even that up, you're talking about a 5-point game, and you're talking about an Oklahoma City Thunder team that really kind of seemed to slow down and take their time a little bit more in game number 2. Their number of shots that they took was down from 98 to 82. So think about that. You got 16 fewer shots, yet you put up, 13 more points in game number 2. So a really, really efficient performance from Oklahoma City, and that really is the difference. And I think once they calmed down, especially after taking that shot in game number 1, we didn't know if it was going to shake their confidence after game number 1. They've shown the composure. They've calmed themselves down a little bit. They realize, oh my God, we have a clamped down defense.
And
we have one of the best players in the world right now on our roster. We're going to be okay.
Defense is proving that it not only travels, but it still wins championships in the NBA. I'll say this. I don't think Tyrese Halliburton's 100%. I just don't. You watch him last night. He disappeared at times last night. Now, he came out in the fourth quarter, and he was really good last night. He was good in the fourth quarter, but his aggressiveness, man, like I was watching the game last night with a buddy of mine, and Diesel, you never heard Tyrese Halliburton's name in the first half. He just didn't – he wasn't aggressive. He didn't push the ball. He didn't get to the rim. I don't think they were as unselfish. And when Halliburton disappears, Indiana's offense, they became stagnant. They became predictable. And then when Oklahoma City got up on them last night, it almost was like it was in their head a little bit. You just can't win a finals relying on guys like T.J. McConnell to generate offense every night. It's not going to happen. So while I love Tyrese Halliburton, what you're seeing from SGA, Diesel, you mentioned the best player on the planet, what you're seeing is consistency. He's the league's MVP. He brings it every night, and they play defense. They're really good, and maybe we just didn't talk about them enough during the regular season because we all wanted the superstars like the LeBrons, the Currys, the Giannis's, right, to be in the finals. But SGA has calmly said, hey, I am a superstar, period.
Where the heck, by the way, was Obi Toppin in game number 2? Game 1, Obi Toppin scored 17 points off the bench. Game 2, he manages just 3. He wasn't there. I mean, T.J. McConnell and Benedict Mathurin, they both stepped up. They both had themselves good days, and they weren't particularly great in game number 1, 5 and 9 points respectively. So you made up a little bit of it, of Obi Toppin's slump, if you want to call it that, in game number 2 with 2 other players who didn't give you a strong game number 1. But, you know, Obi's one of those guys that can take over the game as a bench player. And the bench players, remember we talked about it on Friday, when Indiana sat the entire starting 5 and brought a fresh 5 out there, they were getting production from their bench 5.
Yeah.
They didn't have that in game 2.
I also don't think they have the depth, Diesel, when you look at their injuries they've had this season. Their bench has been kind of inconsistent. You mentioned Obi Toppin there. The bench it's just kind of rolls in waves. It kind of rolls in waves, and when you have to go against guys like Giddey, Isaiah Joe, and Jalen Williams who can switch, score, and defend from Oklahoma City's standpoint, you're outnumbered. And not only are you outnumbered, you're outmanned. So, again, I just think my overreaction is that this series is quite over. I don't know if Indiana gets one more, but I'm going to predict, what are we now? We're looking to game 3 on Wednesday. Both are in Indiana. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
That helps. But I don't know if they win one.
Here's where it really matters. You know, obviously every game is a must-win at this point.
Sure,
So to say this is a must-win game, that's a silly thing to say. But the team that wins Game 3 of the NBA Finals after a 1-1 start goes on to win the series 80% of the time. I mean, this is the must-win game of this series. This is the must-win game of this series. 33 teams that won Game 3 after a 1-1 tie went on to win the championship. Only 8 teams that lost Game 3 came back to win that series. You can point back to a couple of examples. In 2011, Dallas lost Game 3 against Miami. They went on to win the series in 6. In 2013, the Spurs, San Antonio won game number 3. Miami went on to win the series. Yeah. But you go past that, Cole, 2016, the Cavs, 2019, the Raptors, 2022, the Warriors. The team that wins Game 3 after starting 1-1 go on to win this thing.
That's big. It really is. And look, we talked about it before the series started that we liked Indiana. We liked Rick Carlisle. We liked their culture they've built. I do think they're missing a few small pieces when it comes to being a championship-type team. Now, you say, Cole, they made it to the championship. Obviously, they're not missing anything. Well, what do we talk about a lot in the NFL? And I want to apply this, Diesel, now to the NBA. In the NFL, we talk about teams who build a roster not to win championships, but guess what they build a roster to do? Buffalo's trying to build a roster to beat Kansas City. Dallas is trying to build a roster to beat Philadelphia. You have to beat those teams to get there. And I think Indiana's to the point now where they know they are good enough to make it to the title game, but now they need to look at themselves and say, okay, how can we build a roster to beat Oklahoma City? How can we build a roster to beat Minnesota, right? The best teams out of the West, because if they're going to be back consistently, they've got to be able to get a little bit deeper on their bench. They've got to have a little bit more firepower offensively. They're a good team. They've made it to the finals, but I do think it's over.
So in your mind, are they in search of, assuming they don't win this series and we're not proven wrong, do they go out in search of another big-time scorer, somebody that can put up 25 a night, which, you know, when you talk about salary cap, that's when you start changing the makeup of your team. That's when you have to start losing those all-important 5, 6, 7 players to be able to afford a superstar? Or do you go find one more guy that can give you 15 points a night off the bench?
I think they need somebody that's a secondary star, Diesel, because Tyrese Halliburton's the go-to, but when he's locked down, you're asking Pascal Siakam to be the consistent number 2 scoring option. And in a tight playoff game, when you're looking at Pascal Siakam, who's a good player, NBA champion, by the way, in Toronto, you've got to get a secondary scorer that can continue to contribute to what Tyrese Halliburton does. Miles Turner's good. He stretches the floor. In my mind, he's not a dominant post defender or a dominant rebounder, but I think he's good enough. I would like to see them get a little bit more physical of a big, somebody who can bang inside a little bit like Anthony Davis does. Obviously, he's in Dallas, but there are a few. Again, it's like I said, there are a few places where I think they can improve. I really do.
I'm still stuck on OKC wins the series. I don't know if this thing gets to 7. I would love to see it go to 7 because this is fun. More opportunities to see Tyrese Halliburton do what Tyrese Halliburton does. But, I mean, think about it, Cole. If he misses that shot, we're talking about a team that's down 0-2, and, like, this thing is done. That cake is baked. Get it out of the oven.
It's true. College baseball super regionals, Diesel. There's one game remaining tonight. What happened this past weekend? We'll get into it next. College World Series and baseball are set, almost, kind of. There's one game tonight, Diesel, on this Overreaction Monday. Murray State and Duke. That went 3. Obviously, a third game would bring you to Monday. There were a lot of games that didn't go 3 as to why there's only one game on this Monday night. But the College World Series are pretty much set in Omaha as we look ahead to the final teams that will be playing in the College World Series tournament. Arizona defeated North Carolina 2-1. And Diesel, that's where I start because that's the biggest surprise. I told you Friday that North Carolina looks unbeatable.
They were clobbering teams.
Arizona took down North Carolina. That's shocking to me. I was not ready for that. So Arizona advances. Murray State defeated Duke yesterday 19-9. Louisville takes down Miami in 3 games. Louisville is headed to the College World Series. How about Arkansas? Arkansas, Diesel, knocks out the reigning champs in 2 games. Yesterday, 11-4. Arkansas over Tennessee. We will not have defending champs, and that means that we only can go to who as the last time a team went back-to-back, the South Carolina Gamecocks. No defending champs this year, Diesel.
Do you like conference-on-conference violence in the super regionals? I love it because it honestly prevents a few conferences from possibly being able to dominate the College World Series. I mean, things will play out the way they're going to play out, but you didn't have Arkansas facing Arizona, Tennessee facing North Carolina, so that you would have the possibility of getting both of them in, and LSU getting in, and who else? Were there any more SEC? No, those were the only 3 SEC teams in the super regional area. But it keeps 3 out of the 8 from being out of one conference. Some years it'll play out that way. Some years it won't. I love the parity. I love the intrigue at this level. Otherwise, you might just say, well, I'll just wait till Omaha before I start paying attention.
UTSA, Diesel, was no match for UCLA. 7-0 yesterday to win that series in 2 games. The Bruins go on to the College World Series. You mentioned LSU. They defeated West Virginia 12-5. LSU won the series 2-0. West Virginia was the winner of the Clemson Regional. So West Virginia, their last win was in Clemson, South Carolina. And then Oregon State, Florida State. Boy, was that fun. Game 3, Oregon State defeats Florida State in a football game. 14-10. How's that for a baseball score? 14-10. Oregon State goes on. North Carolina not in the tournament now because they have been eliminated, and now Oregon State kind of licks their chops a little bit. That's big not to have to run into the Tar Heels. But Friday, Diesel, the College World Series begins. Obviously, like I said, we await the winner of Murray State Duke tonight. But if you look at the field, it's a competitive field, man. It really is.
Yeah, we'll have 2 SEC teams in this thing. Minimum of 1 ACC team. Louisville is in. Duke might be able to squeak past the Murray State. What was their mascot?
Oh,
I don't remember either.
Do you not?
No, I don't. Murray State Racers.
Racers. You're right.
Not racists. Racers.
Racers.
Yeah.
Racers. I don't like that. Do you? I
Racers.
don't like that. Racers.
It's not a good mascot.
It just doesn't sound. It doesn't come off the tongue right, does it? Racers.
Murray State Marauders. The Milkmen, whatever you want to call them.
The
Racers don't work.
Anything with an M.
Yeah.
Racers. No.
Well, you know me. I'm a sucker for alliteration.
I am too. I like Oregon State, man. I said on Friday that I think they have a good shot to win the whole thing. Obviously, Arizona having beaten North Carolina is impressive, but there's some good teams. JB earlier predicted Arkansas, and how dare we forget the first team to punch their ticket. Diesel, the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers were the first team to punch their ticket to the College World Series. How about Coastal, man? That is awesome. Good on them.
I called it, Cole, on Friday. I called it. Coastal Carolina is my pick as a sleeper to win the whole damn thing. I mean, is it a massive uphill battle to win the whole thing? Yeah, it is. But they've got some really good pitching. I told you. They got some really good starting pitching. 4 starters under a 3.0 ERA. They've got a couple of really good relievers as well. They're on a 23-game win streak. They got belief on their side. They just knocked off the Auburn Tigers. Everybody loves their coach because he's telling Florida's head coach to sit down and shut up. I mean, how could you not love the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers right now?
You love them. You love them. JD says, Jesus, Cole, you said you were the last ones to win back-to-back. That's the only reason I was crowing. Come on, man. JD, you might want to...
There's two of us.
Yeah, there's two of us.
I typed that, JD. I typed that. He said cock-a-doodle-doo. I said cock-a-doodle. Do you guys even still have a baseball program?
JD's so sensitive.
Yeah.
I mean, Diesel, calm down. It's good. It's all good.
Hey, see, it helps if we tag our messages with our names. It helps if you do the same thing as well, JD, when you text in at 844-326-3663. When we come back, Cole, let's jump ever so briefly back into this conversation about paying student athletes with one new incredible way that you can help put money in these players' pockets. That's next. You started the show, Cole, asking in what ways can't you pay student athletes? Well, the ways that you can pay them are numerous. They are many, and they're getting more and more creative. EA Sports has now figured out how they're going to pay schools and how they're going to distribute revenue from its game to schools. And you, Tolos, the video game playing masses, are a part of that. No longer is it going to be based on like AP results over the last 10 years, because that's how they did do it last year. They would put schools into tier systems. Tier 1 got the most money, tier 2, tier 3, on down the line. Now, Cole, it's based on how much you play the game as each individual school. So you, by logging in and playing as Clemson, playing as South Carolina, playing as Oregon State, or an FCS school, Furman, however you choose to log in and play, you will then distribute revenue to the schools because you are choosing to interact with that brand specifically and actively.
So if you complain about it, as Dabo said,
and you're part of the problem.
You're part of the problem.
Yep.
So you're telling me, Diesel, that me playing the video game is boy, you complainers out there that don't like this, I'll tell you what, this is interesting. It doesn't really surprise me. If I want to go spend $2,000 or how much ever it is on a video game console now,
sure,
I've got to spend that. But I guess the bright side is to that spending of the money, Diesel, is I know if I play as a certain team enough, I guess it'll make somebody's pockets happy, right? Just not mine. I'm not benefiting from it anyway, but
a new
will.
PS5, by the way, retails for $650, roughly, depending on which edition you get. There's some that are a little bit cheaper, some that are a little bit more expensive. The amount of storage you get and all that crap. There's a range of ones that you can go buy. So you're talking about $650, and then what do video games cost now? $100?
Probably $100,
whatever it may be.
I'd say.
People don't actually buy the physical media anymore, so you're just spending your money and hoping that your house doesn't get struck by lightning, because then your investment in your video games is gone. But this is all being reported by CLLCT, so Collect, I assume. They've obtained documents that say royalties from the video game will be distributed via how much time you spend playing the game as each individual schools.
This is crazy, man.
It's wild, right?
Crazy.
It says in a sample scenario from Collect, the total royalties in a university pool would be $5 million with 700 million games played. If users play 7 million games as School A, the school's allocation would be 1%. Therefore, School A would receive $50,000. Don't check me on the numbers. I'm just reading this out of the article here.
Yeah.
For each CFB product released by EA Sports, we, CLC Learfield, will provide a percentage for each institution based on the games played for that institution as a percentage of the total games played across all institutions. So it'll be a percentage of if 1 million games get played, 10 million games get played, whatever percentage of time is spent playing as Clemson, they will get that percentage of money.
The definition, Diesel, of degenerate will only get worse now. Madcraft, who has been MIA since the Braves started losing again, he will only play as Miami. So does this mean now, like, if you're a Clemson fan, right, you're never going to play with anybody else other than Clemson?
Does that make me a bad fan if I choose to play as another team other than mine?
That's what I'm saying.
I'm
never playing with Carolina, right?
Look, I stopped playing video games a long time ago. I still like video games. I'm not dropping $650 on a console. It's not important to me anymore, okay? I got a house, I got a dog, I got a wife. People are probably saying it's weird that you said those things in that order. Yeah. I got a house, I got a wife, I got a dog. All three of those things are expensive. So there's no money for me to go drop $650 on a console plus another $100 on one game. But the way I always played the NCAA video games back in the day is I would play a couple of generic games as whatever team, Alabama, Clemson, whoever it may be. Yeah. And then I would, just to get the feel of the game, then I would create my own team, because App State was FCS at the time. They were not on the game. And then I would turn them into a 3-time national champ. Don't laugh.
Yeah.
That's how I would play the game. I'd build Kid Brewer Stadium up to the point where it held 100,000 fans. It was great. So a lot of fun was had inside the video game. And then I would bounce around and play as other teams again. And that's how I like to play the game. But you're telling me that I'm a bad fan, that I'm giving money to the enemy if I play as Alabama or Oregon or Nebraska or Southern Cal or whoever it may be.
I think that's a great question, Diesel, for the Tolos out there on this Monday, on this Overreaction Monday, is now with this. Like Zach was commenting a minute ago on Facebook. I think Zach, tell me if I'm wrong, I think Zach's a video gamer, right? If the question is, if you are a fan of a certain team, will you now just avoid playing with anybody else in your conference or your rival? Ooh. So if you're Clemson, you're certainly not going to play with South Carolina because you said 7 million times playing might equal like 50 grand. So one time playing is not certainly going to go get them a Jadeveon Clowney. We get that, but it adds up. It adds up. It's the thought. It's the principle of it, right? That you playing as South Carolina might be bad for the fan base and for the program of Clemson because you playing as Lenora Sellers, Diesel. If you're a Clemson fan, it's going against you. It's hurting your program. That's interesting.
I wonder, Cole, I mean, when are we going to start seeing, and remember there's a couple of players that decided to hold out from the game last year who didn't want
Arch.
Arch. What were they supposed to get, like $500 for they probably had to stand there in a booth and let the thing scan their face, and that was about it, right? And then you put their name on the back of the jersey, and now Arch Manning is in the game. Here's your $500. Congratulations. Are we going to get to a point where there's real money being distributed to schools, but not directly to the players that are being played in the game? And then saying, you know what, I'm going to hold myself out of the game because I'm not seeing money off of it the way that the school is. You know, the school, it's a percentage of the games played. So far, as far as we know, players, it's a flat fee. Here's $500 for letting us scan you and put you in the game.
It's interesting.
But if tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people are playing with Texas because they want to play as Arch Manning, what if Arch says, or Lenora says, or whoever it may be, says, well, I'm not getting a percentage off of being embodied in the game. I'm out.
I'm not going to play.
I don't want to be here anymore. I'm not going to play in your game anymore.
Look, what have we always said with anything? The moment, like everything's fun and games until money's involved, right? Like the board games that you grew up playing, they were fun and games until what? Until money's involved. Every hobby that you do is fun and it's games until money's involved. And college athletics for so long, Diesel, have been fun and games for us until money's gotten involved. So now you're just looking at this sport changing, not only what you see on Saturdays with different players in different uniforms, but it's going to change every aspect because the moment money's involved in the sport, it literally bleeds down and it's going to affect so much more than just recruiting, so much more than just NIL, so much more than just Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia being relevant, right, which didn't happen before NIL. It's going to bleed down. And I think this was our worry, our concern. It's only going to get worse, Diesel.
On the live stream, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, Zach Breeze says, I'll play with anybody but Clemson. At least you have your principles, Zach. JB says, I don't give a crap. I pay $100 for the game, and I'm playing with every team on that game if I want. I'll give every team a piece of the pie. JB, it's gonna be a struggle signing in to play as Bowling Green State. I'm just gonna let you know the uniforms are fugly. Another texter asks at 844-326-3663, what is it only on the newest edition of the game or over last year's version as well? Well, texter, that brings up a really interesting question that I think only you online gamers can even answer, right? What's the difference between college football 25, 26, and 27, can you all play on the same servers together? So, like, why even have a 20, 25, 26, 27, 28 edition if, number one, you're not even buying the disc anyway? So, like, the whole idea of cover art isn't really a thing anymore. It's now you're just buying NFTs. Congratulations, you're doing that now. But, like, can somebody who has the 2025 edition of the game just, like, pay an upgrade fee to essentially upgrade your 25 to a 26 instead of having to buy a whole new game?
I don't think so. I
don't know how that works.
I don't think so.
But to your question, Texter, it doesn't say. It doesn't say in this article that they are going to retroactively apply it to people who bought last year's version. However, again, all of this stuff is digital, right? It's all downloadable content. It's not like it's a new disc with upgraded graphics and upgraded this and that as compared to last year's version of the game. You're all playing online on the same server, so there's nothing to say that the folks over at EA can't just flip a switch and say, here's how all modern versions of the game are going to be distributing revenue.
Scott says, I'm going to take a picture of myself playing as Michigan and text it to Lonzo every morning. I like that. T. Swizzle says, I be damned if I'm playing with South Carolina. And that's what, that's where we are now. That's why we brought it up, because if you're a diehard Clemson fan or a diehard Gamecock, you're not going to contribute to the other team's success.
I just wonder if a handful of players at South Carolina log in and start playing the game as South Carolina, does that count as playing with themselves?
Yeah, I think so. You're having that conversation. I guess.
Pay for playing with yourself.
Yeah,
wow.
How all this ties into what we talked about in the very first segment of the show, Diesel, with the news that we led off with a judge okaying a $2.8 billion settlement, paving way for colleges to pay athletes tolos. If you didn't hear that segment in the very first hour of the show, you can go back and listen on the free Odyssey app. But it all ties in. It does. And Diesel and I started the show off by talking about how schools can now pay athletes directly, the new era in college sports, a multi-billion-dollar legal settlement that was approved Friday. It was Judge Claudia Wilkin who approved the deal, Diesel. Just to give our Tolos a summary, representing all D1 athletes, the House versus NCAA settlement ends 3 separate federal antitrust lawsuits, all of which claimed the NCAA was illegally limiting the earning power of college athletes. So all that's done. And the NCAA will now pay back $2.8 billion in back damages over the next 10 years to athletes who competed at any time from 2016 to present day. And where does that mark? Those that played in the old video game. There's just so many aspects of this, man.
So not only is the NCAA seeing their power stripped away from them by this new enforcement organization, but they're also having to pay $2.8 billion. How much money do they have? Like, do they have just a big old mountain of gold like Scrooge McDuck that they dive into it head first? Which, by the way, that never would have worked. If you think about it realistically, in the cartoon intro, when Scrooge McDuck dives into a mountain of gold coins, he would break his neck.
Hurt.
It's not water, okay?
Good.
You can't just dive through a pile of coins like that.
Yeah, I just like what I find interesting about this is when we talk about this new NCAA House versus settlement, Diesel, this new loss, or the ending of all of these different lawsuits, I find interesting what I kind of referenced to earlier in this segment with the bleeding down, the bleeding through. So many different revenue streams now, right? So you're looking at a video game with EA Sports now serving as a revenue stream to help fund athletics, scholarships, player support, NIL. How many more revenue streams are we going to see in the next 5 years? Because the revenue streams that we're already seeing are kind of opening our eyes, making us with a deer in headlight look. This is only going to continue. I don't want to say to get worse, but it is going to take over in ways that, Diesel, I don't know if college football fans are ready for.
How long, Cole, before we hear about the first engagement farming operation to make sure certain schools get the brunt of that revenue? Like if you've heard of engagement farming with social media content, and I've heard of the concept before, but until you see what they actually do, I've seen it's like an Asian kid, and it's Asian kid because it's the actual person that was in the actual video that I saw. He's got a wall of cell phones in front of him. They're all mounted on the wall in front of them, and they're all on the exact same Instagram post. And he just goes down the line and goes like on this video on 100 different cell phones. What's to stop somebody from having a room with 100 PlayStation 5s in there, all running a copy of this game, and then making sure they're all playing and simulating games or whatever as Alabama, so that Alabama gets more money off of this? It's not crazy.
What level?
If I just thought about it in like 5 minutes, somebody's already going to do it.
What level does this stop at? When you talk about this new news with fans being able to play with a team, and the more times they play with that team, it supports the school. What about when a certain player scores a touchdown? What about when a certain player gets a sack, right? Are we going to get to that point? And you may think, no, Cole, we're never going to get there. It's never going to get to that. But you can't never say never, right? I mean, look where we are now. You never thought we'd be here. So what happens when Sammy Brown in the video game gets 6 sacks in one game? What happens when, whoever it is scores 2 touchdowns for South Carolina and little Johnny's playing the video game? I mean, you're telling me it's already to the point where teams are getting funded for players sitting at home playing with their teams online. But you're telling me that the players aren't going to be able to benefit more and more from that?
Are they going to want to get paid off of their digital stats?
Yeah.
You said it. If 1 million people are playing as Ohio State and they keep throwing touchdowns to Jeremiah Smith, Jeremiah Smith's going to want some of that money, potentially, right? And he's not – it'd be passive income. It'd be a brilliant thing to try to sue for. Think about that. It'd be a brilliant thing to try to sue for and try to get. I don't know if you could get it. I don't know if you could convince a judge.
Speaking of suing, now that, people are, from what I've seen on social media, people think now that this NCAA House settlement is passed, the lawsuits are completely done. I don't know if I buy that. I don't know if I buy lawsuits being done. That we're never going to have. How many times last year during March, April, May, June, July, August did you and I talk about all these different antitrust lawsuits that were happening? They're just going to go away. There's no more lawsuits ever again.
Just
right?
New lawsuits.
Yeah, it's interesting. But let's kind of transition to a new conversation, but keep this conversation going, Diesel, as in the very next segment, we will be joined by Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier to talk NCAA versus House. He just put out an article not long ago that you can find on his Twitter, at Scott Hamilton PC, as well as our Twitter at The Fan Upstate. A little golf, a little Coastal Carolina baseball, so much coming your way. Scott Hamilton joins the show next.
You guys hear me okay?
So much to get to in this very segment as we are joined for the second time on the Fan Upstate on Wire to Wire with Scott Hamilton. Scott is no longer looking over my right shoulder like he was doing at Quail Hollow on that Friday afternoon in Charlotte. But Scott is sitting with us on the stream. If you're watching the show, if you're not watching the show, you can see Scott on there. 71 of you Tolos watching right now on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube with a beautiful American flag behind him sits Scott Hamilton. Scott, you had an interesting piece, NCAA versus House. Before we take a deep dive into that article, your just immediate reaction when you saw this news on Friday?
My immediate reaction kind of dovetails on what you guys were talking about before you went to the break. I mean, here come the lawsuits. Here come the lawsuits, man. I mean, you know, it's cliche, but it's a truth that billable hours are undefeated, and now it's just going to be cuckoo, man, with these lawyers just making money hand over fist. I mean, and did you guys see this? The two major law firms that were in charge of the House settlement that represented the plaintiffs in that class action lawsuit, and there were hundreds of thousands of plaintiffs. I want to say they brought home $687 million for themselves. Should have went to law school, man, except for the whole doing schoolwork stuff.
Yeah.
But that was my reaction, man. I mean, it's just going to be lawsuit after lawsuit, and not just like one kind of lawsuit, but multiple kinds of lawsuits. There's lawsuits that we're not even thinking about. There are attorneys right now somewhere sequestered in their mahogany offices with all that leather and all that stuff, and they're thinking, what can I sue about? Because now the getting is good. It's ripe for the picking, man. And I thought it was short-sighted that they thought this would be the end of it.
Scott, it feels like we could spend a segment on every one of the major pieces of this settlement because they are numerous and they are each topics that you could spend a lot of time getting into, whether it be the new NIL oversight, whether it be the new College Sports Commission, whether it be Title IX, whether it be who can pay athletes and who can't pay athletes. I mean, at what point did they look at this and not think to themselves, this is turned into an amoeba that just keeps growing larger and larger and larger, and we've got to figure out a way to simplify instead of making it more complex?
Do you remember the South Park with the Trapper Keeper that just kept growing and growing and growing? It's Cartman's Trapper Keeper, man. That's what this is. It's Cartman's Trapper Keeper. It's evolving and growing, and it's taking over everything, and it's going to become something that we never imagined. I don't know. I mean, look, we all know where this is headed, and the easiest solution is just to pull the plug now, collectively bargain, and make them employees. And that's it. And we need to do away with the pretenses that this has to do with school. That's done. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. And just call it like it is. Yeah, this is Georgia's football team, but well, these guys don't actually go to class at Georgia. They represent the university, and it's the university's alumni that funds this, yada, yada, yada. They're still Georgia Bulldogs, but they're not going to class. Let's just call it like it is. And I think that's the only solution. Otherwise, we're going to keep revisiting things like this like it's Groundhog Day over and over and over, except at least if they are employees and at least if there's collective bargaining, it can take an NFL model or something thereabouts where you are beholden to contracts. There is a commissioner who has unilateral power, and these are the rules and the guidelines that everybody goes by, and they're simple to understand.
You know, Scott, I'm working on the exact terminology, but I'm thinking about coining the acronym NAR. Instead of being student athletes, they're NARs, non-academic athletic representatives of the university, right? They don't have to go to class. They just show up and put on a uniform and go make money.
Well, how about this? And I threw this out there about 2 or 3 years ago. We just have two divisions. We have your NARs. I like that. We have your NARs, and then we have your traditional student athlete. and you have 2 championships. I think that's the only way to go with this, and maybe that's where it's headed. Maybe the Power 2 break off, they do their own thing, and then what's left says, you know what, we can make this work. We can make this work, and here's how we're going to do it. And it includes having guys who go to class, and they get a little NIL money, and they're also getting an education, and they have to abide by the old rules.
Scott, you have a piece that I referenced earlier on the Post and Courier. The House settlement is here, and college sports will never be the same. For someone out there listening today, can you go into a little bit of depth on why, in your mind, college sports will never be the same?
Oh man, which part? Which part? I mean, you guys have covered it really well. By the way, I've been very impressed with the 15 minutes I've got to listen. It'll just never be the same. The student athlete model dead. The pretense that the NCAA has any juice dead. There are going to be athletic departments that fold. There are going to be hundreds of teams that are no longer going to exist. Olympic sports, forget that. Olympic sports for the schools that compete at the highest level in the revenue sports, football, men's basketball, they're just going to have to go away because A, they cost money, and B, they don't bring in money. And C, they don't bring in any exposure. I mean, when's the last time you got up and you said, oh, man, Baylor's playing tennis today. What channel is it on? That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Right. So they're going to start funding it. Well, then it goes back to the lawsuits and Title IX and all that's going to get involved. And I think at one point, athletic departments, a lot of them are going to throw up their hands and say, I just don't think we should be in business. Or maybe we're better off swallowing our pride. Let's go down a division. Let's go down to Division II. Boy, we could do well there. We'll still bring in big bucks. We got passionate alumni. We just have to let them know that, we're no longer playing in the SEC, but going and playing a Limestone, rest in peace, or some other division team counts for a lot.
Scott, could you see a future where programs that are being shut down, the inevitability there, like a swim team gets shut down, that a swim team could then sue its own university and say, you're not allowed to cut our funding?
Absolutely, especially if it's a women's swim team and it gets under that Title IX umbrella. Title IX, man, I mean, I'm all for it. It's an absolutely fantastic thing. And that is the one entity, and I'll call it an entity. It is the one entity I think that could be unwavering with all this, that it is going to protect who it was designed to protect. That's the only thing that's going to stand solid for this. Everything else could fold, man. Fold like a trailer in a tornado.
It's interesting when we have this conversation, Scott, as we're joined by Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier right here on the Fan Upstate. Let me ask you this. We had a Tolo in the very first segment of the show today ask about non-revenue sports being just canceled. In your mind, are we there? Are we there yet?
Were you born with that voice? Your radio voice is incredible.
Look, I didn't pay Scott to say
that. Hi. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. There's a 5-alarm fire in Burbank today. That's outstanding.
Yeah, I guess to answer your question, I was born with this voice. I mean, how else would I have it, Scott? Right?
I want to see 7-year-old Cole in second grade, and a teacher calls on him. Well, teacher, the answer to that question is 7. And, may I go to the prize box?
Too kind. You're too kind.
No, but, very good. But no, I can see non-revenue sports, man, just going by the wayside, rolling into club sports. Maybe that's what they should be anyhow. Honestly, a lot of them, club sports.
Yeah.
I mean, rugby. Rugby's a cool club sport. I don't know about crew and things like that. They got to have those boats. Those are kind of expensive. But why keep paying money for something you're not getting a return on? Sure. And you're not only paying the expense of the team. I know these sports aren't fully funded scholarship wise, but there are some scholarships tethered to them, thousands and thousands of dollars for a guy to go play golf, for a guy to go, shoot, track and field, things like that. But that's still money the school could save. I mean, they're going to have to tighten their belts. Where else do you look?
So, Scott, how does this settlement disproportionately affect the smaller schools, the Coastal Carolinas, the Georgia Southerns, East Carolinas, Charlottes, App States of the world, as compared to the Clemsons and the South Carolinas, who in theory have essentially unlimited funding because they get a tremendous amount of money from their conferences and all the other different revenue sources that they get. But the G5s are running extremely thin. We saw a couple of programs get shut down during COVID in order to save some money at some of these schools. Is it really going to hammer those schools the worst?
Your voice is okay. I like it. It's more like mine. It's very conversational.
I wasn't trying at all right there to put on something similar to Cole.
That's the voice you hear when you go to Pizza Hut and you hit the buffet at noon, and he's talking, well, I got to get back to the office around 1:30, and then I got to go pick up the kid. He's got practice. So, but the G5, okay, first of all, let's start in the middle because I think there's a misconception there. South Carolina is going to be okay because it is going to get beaucoup dollars from the SEC, and it's going to keep going up. Clemson needs to thank its lucky stars that the ACC gave in and now has this structure where they're going to give more to the schools actually produce and bring in eyeballs and so on and so forth. But that's got a shelf life, man. Yeah. I mean, now we know the definitive price to get out of the ACC. Now we know what it'll cost in 2030. Happens to be when the TV contracts start giving, rolling around and all that. And even that money that they're going to get from the ACC is at that time is going to be light years behind the SEC and the Big Ten. So Clemson's going to be behind the eight ball, and God bless Graham Neff, forward-thinking guy who has found other ways to bring in revenue, but it's going to be a never-ending task. Back to your point, though, your earlier part of the question, I just don't see how the G5s compete. They're going to become even more so than they are now feeder programs. That's what they're going to become. They're going to get guys in, they're going to develop them, they're going to coach them up, they're going to leave. That's just how it's going to be, because the house settlement is based upon a percentage of your athletic department's revenue. Well, it's smaller than that of a Power Four. It's smaller than that of an SEC or Big Ten team. So even if they were to max it out, it's still going to be light years behind. And App State's going to be light years behind a Clemson. Let's say Charlotte. Charlotte's going to be light years behind a South Carolina. So they're going to have to find other ways to find revenue, to discover revenue streams. But even then, it's going to be tough, man, because it's going to be a grind. And they're going to be developmental schools. That's what they're going to become.
Scott, let's transition and talk a little golf. Oakmont this weekend should be a lot of fun. Looks like it's going to be a very challenging course. We'll get into that. But do you have any pushback? I said on the show Friday, Diesel and I were broadcasting at the BMW Charity Pro-Am here in the Upstate. I said Friday that I was really disappointed with Rory as a fan of his, and not only what he did after the Masters, where you and I were at the PGA Championship avoiding the media, but not playing in several tournaments, not playing in the Memorial that Jack Nicklaus founded, right? I just found myself on two sides of the coin. In the Masters, I was pulling for Rory. Post-Masters, he's kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Am I wrong on that?
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. It's very hypocritical, is what it is. Rory, as much as anybody out there, more than anybody out there, we'll say that, he was the face of the PGA Tour when the LIV PGA Tour split happened. He was defending the PGA Tour's honor. He was the guy out there screaming, we need these signature events, these 8 signature events, no cut, massive purses. This will offset LIV. We've got to have these. We've got to have these. Then he starts skipping them. He didn't play Hilton Head last year. He didn't play Hilton Head this year. And I get it. You just won the Masters. You just had an historical moment, a life-defining moment. You've got this monkey off your back. You're going to Ireland immediately thereafter to go visit family. Look, I love Harbortown, love Hilton Head, Steve Wilmot, tournament director. Everything down there is great, but I understand you skipping. Sure. But he keeps skipping. And then at the PGA, and come to find out, he wasn't talking to us because he was sideways over his driver. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't the only one, but his name was the one that was leaked. And dude, you can't go out and be the most sympathetic figure in golf on one day and then go out and just turn your back on everything and say it's all about me later. You can't, because what we saw happen at Augusta on Sunday, that was my 14th Masters. I've done a lot of sports, man. I've covered sports all over the world, literally. I've run with the Bulls in Barcelona. I've done it all. I don't know I've ever had an afternoon quite like that. Sure. Honestly. And I wasn't there in 2019 when Tiger came back and won. But to have that moment, and then for him to, I don't want to say behave, but come across and send the vibes that he's sending now, it's not only disappointing, it actually pisses me off a little bit.
Yeah.
Scott, if you ever have a coworker that's got a problem with motivation, send them to Barcelona and put them in front of a stampeding bull. I have a feeling they're going to find some motivation to work just a little bit harder and run a little bit faster. To your point earlier, and we'll go back to golf here in just a second.
Do it hungover.
No, thank you. Clemson's projected or revenue in 2024 was $87 million in football in 2024. App State's revenue was $14 million. Clemson's profit was higher than App State's total revenue when you're talking about the amount of money that these football programs bring in. I want to get a little bigger picture on golf. There's been a lot made about, Callaway trying to get out of Topgolf. They had bought Topgolf, and they thought it was going to be this thing that was going to bring a ton of people into the game. Well, we had a chance earlier in the show to talk to the director of the BMW Charity Pro-Am, and you go out on golf courses and you see that there's all kinds of young people on the golf course getting into it, especially from the YouTube and social media side of things. I mean, is Topgolf a savior of golf? Is it a weight on Callaway? Why would they want to get out of it? There's a whole lot of questions here.
I don't know. I don't know. Look, when you talk about Topgolf, you're getting into that area. What are the two businesses that fail the most? Bars and restaurants and gyms. And wouldn't Topgolf kind of be a marriage between the two of a bar, restaurant, and a gym? I don't know. Topgolf really, and again, I'm no financial expert, so I don't have a voice like Cole, and I don't come across as groovy and cool as you. But I'm going to tell you right now, it seems to me that Topgolf really came onto the scene during COVID. Something you can go do outdoors. You're literally isolated from everybody else. You've got your own little stall, own little party, and maybe it hit its cap. Maybe the forecasters for Callaway Golf said, you know what, this is eventually going to level off that the pandemic's gone and people don't mind the rub elbows again. I don't know. But I will say this. I covered golf for a long time at Golf Week. I've covered it a lot as a columnist. There is no one single thing that can grow the game unless it just gets cheaper at its core.
Yeah.
Nothing. Equipment is expensive. Cost a lot of money to go to golf courses. Some golf courses still aren't very inclusive. Fact. I just don't see it. And anybody who's trying to invest in the game of golf, he has a lot of money and a lot of guts at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to.
Scott, my last question for you. 125th U.S. Open this weekend in Pennsylvania at Oakmont. I don't know if you've seen some videos, but Bryson last week in a practice round, couldn't find his ball in the rough. Can you give fans, I don't even know if we're going to break even with this winning score this weekend. What are your thoughts on the U.S. Open this weekend?
How much time do we have? Because I have beef with the USGA. I have seen more train wrecks at the U.S. Open. My first U.S. Open was 04 at Shinnecock. Now, let me tell you, the winning score, Retief Goosen, was 2 under. That was the winning score. Wow. Phil was even, I want to say, and he finished second. Phil, by the way, 6 runners up at the U.S. Open. It's absolutely incredible. The USGA, obsessed with protecting the sanctity of par, let that course get so far out of control, man. It was so bad. It was so bad that the 7th hole was a par 3. I want to say it was like 175 yards. Downhill. They couldn't stick 8 and 9 irons on it. They were just rolling. It was so fast. They stopped play after 4 groups, and they were having to water the greens between the groups. The best players in the world were having to lay up into a greenside bunker, chip on, and then pray to God they'd make a par. Who wants to watch? Look, I want a tough course. I don't want to see the best golfers in the world humiliated. I don't want to see them having to putt through a clown's nose. I want to see them go out. That's why Augusta is so perfect. You know what you're going to get. It's penal, but it rewards good shots. The USGA sets up courses where it doesn't matter how perfect your shot is, you can still get hosed. We've seen it over and over and over. And I've got a gut-wrenching feeling. We're going to see it again this week. I hope not, but I got a feeling we will.
You know, Scott, I was just down in Jacksonville, Florida yesterday, drove right past the main entrance of Sawgrass. You had to give them a credit card number just to drive past on the main road. To your point about golf being so expensive, it's absolutely ludicrous. I made a statement a couple of weeks ago after we had you on that, you know, you and I talked about it as well, that the PGA feels like the least of the four majors, and they should just move the fourth major, move the PGA down to Sawgrass, put it in the same spot every single year, quit this bouncing from course to course to course. Am I onto something or am I totally off?
No, you're off. You're off because that's the PGA Tour's baby, the players in Sawgrass. You got to remember that the tour literally owns that golf course, and that would never happen. And the PGA Tour,
the fourth major to Sawgrass, yeah.
No, they'll never do that because then you get rid of the sparkle around what they keep saying is the fifth major, that being the Players Championship. They want to own that. That's their Augusta National. That's their baby. And they've moved it from March to May to March to May. And it's just, I'm not a buyer. I walked off that course one time playing it free. I walked off that course one time because I had to walk, which I don't walk when I golf, man. I'm just going to be honest with you. And B, the rough was that high. I said, hell with this, man. I go punch myself in the face and, save myself some time. They won't do that. I like what the PGA does rotating around. Otherwise, they would never bring a U.S. Open to Quail Hollow because the people at Quail Hollow have sense. They're not going to let them, just mutilate the course so that it's incredibly difficult. They would never take a U.S. Open to Whistling Straits, which is a wonderful golf course. It's had the PGA out there, I know of at least twice, and a Ryder Cup, because they would want to mutilate the golf course. I'm down with it. I like the PGA Championship model. I like the PGA of America much better than the USGA. I think they're more affable. I think it's a more grassroots organization. But Ponte Vedra is a good time, man. I closed a bar with Arnold Palmer there once.
Wow.
Hand to God, it happened, and I can send you the column when he died. I wrote about it. It was amazing.
Best golf cocktail, Transfusion or the Field?
I'm going to go the Field on that one.
That's good fair. Answer.
Transfusions are good, though. Great
just
juice.
Michelob Ultra, man.
Come on now.
Just Michelob Ultra, man.
Okay.
Scott, you're the best, man. Always appreciate you.
Hey, listen, you guys are killing it. I love everything going on up there, and I'm going to come in and do something in person very soon.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Absolutely appreciate him. Scott Hamilton, Post and Courier. You heard him right here on the Fan Upstate Diesel. Good stuff there.
Love it, Cole. When we come back on the other side of the break, this might be the best bit of competitive screwballery I've ever heard. We'll talk about it next. Baseball Central, Cole, just shared this video yesterday, though apparently it's like a year or so old. A Japanese baseball player switch hits not every at-bat. He switch hits every pitch.
During the at-bat.
During the at-bat. So when he's batting right-handed, he has this wild stance where he's basically in a full squat on the ground, and then he will just go around the umpire and set up as a lefty for the next pitch. How in the hell do you prepare for a pitcher like that or for a hitter like that?
You don't. And who'd you say this guy? He's in Japanese baseball player.
He's a high school kid.
Wow.
His name is Ko Yamaguchi. Oh,
so my name without an L, or without an L, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. Maybe he's your long lost brother.
It could be
Ko Yamaguchi.
That's tough. I'm trying to think though, as a baseball fan, right? If you're a pitcher, to your point, having to prepare, look, I would say yes, it'd be tough to prepare for, but I also think that from a pitcher standpoint, it might aid certain pitchers. And, just being able to, if a guy, obviously we all know in college and professional baseball, you throw out guys who are better with righties, you throw out guys late in the game who are better with lefties. But I could see a world or a scenario where it could benefit the pitchers. That's interesting.
Should it be legal? I mean, it feels like basically banana ball. This feels like banana ball.
It does feel like it. Yeah, people were upset about banana ball being on TV over the regional.
Should you have to choose a side of the plate and stay at that side
for
of the
that
plate
at bat?
For that at bat.
I'm leaning maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Wild stuff.
That's some tomfoolery there. I might need to think about that. I'm leaning maybe, though. I like that. Overreaction Monday was already 2 hours in the books, but you Tolos have a segment where we will allow you to overreact. It's Overreaction Monday, 5 o'clock next. I did a little bit of overreacting back in the 320 segment, Diesel, when I said I thought the NBA Finals was over. And it's not over. It's tied 1-1 in case you have been under a rock, right, after what happened last night between the Pacers and the Thunder. But that was my overreaction. I like to overreact. Diesel likes to overreact. Let's be honest. Us as sports fans like to overreact. That's what we're best at. We like to take something and just blow it out of proportion. Our Tolos are the absolute best at that, right, Diesel?
They do a good job of that.
They do a fine job. Diesel has some overreactions. I have some overreactions. We also want to hear from you. That's right, you Tolos out there. What's Tolo stand for, by the way, Diesel, for somebody that does not know?
Turn on, leave on.
Turn on, leave on. That's what you are. If you're a new listener of the show, we ask you to turn it on and leave it on. And we have coined all of you listeners, faithful listeners that do turn it on and leave it on as Tolos, T-O-L-O. We want to hear from you in this very segment, what your overreaction may be on this Overreaction Monday. Phone lines are open. The Hub City Spartanburgers text line also open in this very segment. The phone number is 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. Want to give a quick shout out real quick, though, to Todd and Shane. Todd on the Facebook stream and Shane on the YouTube stream that were complimenting Scott Hamilton earlier in the show. We also had a text on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line complimenting our interview with Scott. He is a lot of fun, laid back, very, very much fun. Very much a fun interview anytime we do get Scott on the show. So appreciate you, Tolos. But Diesel, it's time to do what we do best and overreact. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I will start. My overreaction is that Coastal Carolina will continue forcing Chris Phillips to eat crow, because Chris Phillips was down on Coastal, and then what happened? Coastal Carolina swept Auburn in their house at their stadium, punked them, made them look bad. This Coastal Carolina team is legit, Cole.
Yeah.
And I think this team is destined, at worst, to make the College World Series finals. 4 incredible starting pitchers on the team. In relief, they got Lynch and Carbone. Both of those guys are fantastic as well. A 23-game win streak that includes, again, like I just said, Auburn at their place. They beat East Carolina twice. They beat a lot of really, really good baseball teams this season, Cole, and are playing white-hot ball right now.
No, I like that. I don't have an issue with that. Look, I think Friday when we were talking about these regionals, and super regionals rather, I was kind of hesitant on how I felt with Coastal Carolina. And after seeing them do what they did to Auburn, to your point, I'm with you. I'm on board. I mean, there are so many positives to look at when you look at this Coastal Carolina baseball team. So I don't have any pushback there. They're in the College World Series. Think about that. That's where every team wants to be, Diesel. And this team in the College World Series, to say that they don't have a chance to win it all, I certainly think they do.
Put it this way. Coastal, I mean, they put up a lot of runs in game number 1. They beat Auburn 7-6. They didn't score a run until the 7th inning of that second game that ultimately clinched that series. And they put up 3 in the 7th, 1 in the 8th. Their closing pitching shut Auburn down. They didn't score after the second. I mean, that is a really good baseball team. And hey, the story, it happened while I was out on vacation. I know a caller kind of alluded to it, though I didn't really know what they were talking about because, like I said, when I was on vacation, I disconnected.
Yeah.
That story of Kevin Schnall going after Kevin O'Sullivan for bullying the representative on the field. Shout out to that representative on the field. If we had been here and done 5 o'clock fives on a Friday, I would have given a high five to that guy because he stood his ground, never flinched, never said, sorry, coach. No, he just stood there, took it, and didn't bat an eye.
Tolos, if you want to know how this works, here's how it works on this Overreaction Monday. There are sports topics all over to overreact about, as you see on the stream. There's 5. I tweeted this out earlier today. 5 storylines on this Monday. Coastal, the NCAA House settlement, the Thunder, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, are you telling me nobody's going to overreact to Aaron Rodgers? Diesel, the Braves, all hope being lost with the Atlanta Braves. So much to overreact about on this Monday. Phone lines 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. I have one that's Aaron Rodgers related. Spartanburg J already on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. Let's go to the phone lines where Dan B wants to overreact. DB, what is your overreaction on this Monday?
Oh, I have nothing to overreact to because my driver beat all of y'all's favorite drivers this weekend.
Denny.
For the third time.
Let me ask you this question real quick. How bad do you feel for Carson Hocevar for like the 3rd week in a row?
Oh no, I was actually rooting for him to
I
win.
was too, man.
I'm always rooting for my guy to win, but man, when he blew the tire, I was like, no.
And his
no,
engine
okay,
blew.
go get it.
His engine blew a couple weeks ago. He falls out of that race. He's he wins that race yesterday, right? I mean, he's winning that race.
I think he had a shot for sure.
I did
for
too.
Sure.
I did too.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of I'm watching him. He's good kid.
He's good, man. He's fast. Do you have a problem with the way? I mean, everybody else's problem with him, the way he races?
No, not at all.
I love it.
I don't even see it. I don't think he did anything that day. That's just like the people that said Benny somehow screwed up Byron that one day. I was like, that's impossible. And I just saw Hocevar just held his line at the bottom of the track, and Stenhouse cut into him.
Yeah, he came down.
Hocevar didn't go up into his Stenhouse. Stenhouse came down. So I don't know, what was Hocevar supposed to do? Hit the brake? No. It's your line. You own it.
Dan, my biggest problem with that whole situation with Hocevar is everybody wants NASCAR to have these personalities and these flamboyant guys, and we all want to get into more NASCAR and we want it to be a better product. But then when somebody like Hocevar comes on the scene and he does exactly that, everybody's fussing because he's too out there. He says what he thinks. He does exactly what Dale Earnhardt did when he came onto the scene. But now we have a problem with it.
Yeah, no, that seems to be a common theme, is that everybody wants it, but then when it happens, everybody wants to bitch about it. It's like, come on. It's like they just want to bitch just to bitch or something.
Sure.
They want to be miserable just because they're miserable.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, catch me up on Aaron Rodgers. What happened there?
Diesel and I, what was it, Friday?
Yeah.
We were at the BMW Pro-Am, and were we doing an interview when JD or somebody texted?
That was actually Thursday when it was announced that it was happening.
Okay, gotcha.
But Aaron Rodgers now has officially signed with the Steelers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay. I didn't even catch that. I wasn't watching anything this weekend. So.
Has Aaron Rodgers turned into that much of a nothing burger? Like, it's a story that it catches headlines, but like ultimately when it's a real conversation, hey, he's a Steeler now. Okay, great.
People don't care?
Don't care. Like it's not like Aaron Rodgers is going to take you to the playoffs.
No. That's just like Brett Favre. He went from the Packers to the Jets to Minnesota, and he became a nothing burger once he left the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is following the same recipe.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for the call, Dan.
Appreciate you, Dan.
All right. See you.
Oh, that's funny. I love this comment. You got to read that.
Shane Barrett says, so the B word is fine, but the S word gets you dumped.
That's so funny, man.
Yeah.
That is...
legally speaking, yes, that is correct.
You can say certain things, like Matt Kraft said.
You can say on the radio, legally, man, I had a bitch of a day yesterday.
Yeah.
You can't say, it was that B word Charlene that gave me a terrible day. It forced me into a terrible day. You can't call somebody that word, but you can describe your day as that word that word.
That was still one of my all-time favorite calls. I wish I could find that. It was back during football season last year when Shane. I don't remember what he said or how he said it, but it was funny.
I can say things like Madcraft is an ass. I can say that. But I can't say the second word that typically follows that word. Can't say that on the radio.
Yeah.
It's the rules.
Later on as days go by, you can say, oh, look at the hole in the ground, but you can't put them together. It's weird. You're right. Weird rules. Let's look at the Hub City Spartanburgers text line as Diesel and I are asking for your overreactions on this Monday. As it got really dark outside, I was like, "What's happening?" It's
Gnarly.
It's got
Moving
some
in.
dark clouds. I don't know if they're calling for storms, but it was a pretty day today, man. Overreaction Monday. Diesel's giving you one. I have one as well on Aaron Rodgers. Let's see what this is. Spartanburg J. He says, "My overreaction. Please stop the Clemson hype. I enjoy the hate way more than the hype. Clemson sucks. It's us against the world. No one believes in Clemson, period." That comes from Spartanburg J. So who are you referring to? Like the Josh Pates of the world who are picking Clemson to win it all? Is that who you're referring to, Spartanburg J?
He wants to go back to the days of little old Clemson.
Roy Bus.
The Roy Bus days. That's what Spartanburg. He don't want to be gassed up anymore. He wants to have that chip on the shoulder.
Yeah, and for some teams it's not good. Some teams it's no, I don't. By the way, a random side note. I think Diesel was on that. He says, Madcraft, he was being funny, but sometimes you can be, well, especially with the whole Braves thing. Don't act innocent. You are catching strays for a reason. You know why you're catching strays.
Oh, it's because I said Madcraft is an ass.
Yeah, that's why.
That's why.
That's why.
His name just happened to pop up right then and there.
Was that an overreaction? No.
Oh,
All right. But Spartanburg J, look, I understand the premise of it, but if you want to be year in and year out Diesel known as a contender, there's none of this Roy Bus. There's none of this us against the world. If you want to be looked at as an elite program consistently in college football as a blue blood, you gotta get over that. That's just a fact. If you want to be the man, there is no Roy Bus. Ric Flair was never on the Roy Bus. He was the man. People were coming after Ric Flair. You got to get used to it. That's part of it.
as David Lee Roth once said, this hamburger don't need no helper. If you're the man, act like the man and keep beating everybody anyway, even though you got a big old target on your back. Texter says, overreaction to wire, not even mentioning that epic tennis final at the French Open. Well, what's your reaction? That's just saying, I have a reaction to you not talking about it.
Is he reacting that we should be talking?
What is your reaction, Texter?
Texter,
That's not a reaction. That's a statement.
Texter, you know good and well that if we talk French Open on this show, nobody cares. No, Carlos defeated that Janique guy, whatever his name was.
The only
all-time
French
great.
Open I care about, Cole, is
French toast.
what you put inside that crate before you fold it over. While it's
Right.
still open, that's the French Open I care about.
Nobody here in the upstate cares about the French Open, Texter. So look, if you like it, that's good. That's awesome. That's awesome. But let's see. 703 text in on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. He says, I think Dabo agrees with Spartanburg J. And he may, but Dabo's always liked to beat that drum of the Roy Bus. But if you are upset about Clemson hype, the reality is you don't want success. Because what they say, what's the old saying? With great
Power
comes great responsibilities.
Cheeseburgers?
But that too. So if you want the power, you're responsible for living up to it. And like I said, you got to be the man. Come on. You gotta just be you got to be the one that takes the hits and keeps going. If you want to be the man, you've got to understand the hype's just part of it. How do you think Bama felt all those years? I mean, come on.
Everybody was coming after Bama.
Everybody.
They kept winning anyway. Cole, my second overreaction for you is that officially speaking, the NCAA will cease to exist in the next 10 years. 10 years, NCAA gone. So we talked about earlier in the first segment of the show about the House versus NCAA settlement finally being approved. Well, the new College Sports Commission, chaired by an experienced administrator, former Major League Baseball exec Brian Seeley, will govern implementation, including compliance, reporting, and revenue sharing. I think this, whatever it's going to be called, the College Sports Commission, or if that's what it will be called, the CSC, will gain more and more and more power, control, and influence, and eventually either absorb or just completely eliminate the NCAA.
Yeah, you know what?
As a governing body.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we're closer to that. When you were out, I played the audio of the SE, Greg Sankey. where he said that he has people asking him why they're still even a part of the NCAA, right? We played that audio. We reacted to that. I think we're closer. I don't know how close we are, but I will say I think we're closer than people want to realize.
So you and Dan B brought up an interesting point there. You talked about people wanting personalities, and then when you get personalities, you complain about the personalities.
Right.
Well, let's bring that same context over here to this discussion. People keep saying things like, I want tradition. I want to keep the things that made college football when I was a young man. I want to keep those things. But I also think Greg Sankey should just go scorched earth and take over the sport. But I don't want him to do it because I want – what do you want? What do you actually want here? You know, I was listening to an episode of Crane and Company, and they were talking about the SEC meetings and Greg Sankey not really being super gung-ho for one option or the other when it comes to college football playoff formatting. And so it's like you can't both want tradition and want your commissioner to step on everybody else to get the most he could possibly get for himself. What do you actually want here?
Yeah, that's a good question. My overreaction before we run to a break and bring on another guest, Diesel, is that Aaron Rodgers, his Super Bowl is a playoff win. So that's my overreaction. Aaron Rodgers' Super Bowl is a single playoff win. So you look at him signing in Pittsburgh. Yeah, you got time if you want to call now, Matt Kraft. Short. Call now, though, like real quick, because we do have a guest. If you call right now, we can get you on. Diesel, when you look at Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh, yes, it's an instant upgrade at quarterback. You have veteran leadership. I think the coaching fit might be better. I think the passing attack might be better. There are concerns with age and durability and the scheme, right, and the floor still being low. But I think ultimately you did upgrade. I don't think the upgrade was a flashy, sexy upgrade, but I do think you upgraded when you signed Aaron Rodgers. But he's chasing retirement now. So my overreaction on this Overreaction Monday is that one playoff win, Diesel, 10-win season, 11-win season, one playoff win is Aaron Rodgers' Super Bowl. That's all he needs. That's it, because that's kind of his ceiling in my mind. Agree or disagree?
Ceiling, yes. I'd be shocked if they get to 10 and make the playoffs. I think Aaron's Super Bowl is finishing a season and feeling like he goes out having completed something rather than having his season cut short by injury.
Actually complete the season. Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, the bar is set low. It's real. It's set low, but that's all he needs to do. I mean, if Aaron only gets to go out there and play in 3 games, does he say, well, I didn't do enough, I need to go play on another team? Well, Aaron Rodgers, if he plays another season, will it be as a Steeler? Or is he going to be like one and done, rent a player for whoever needs somebody?
Real quick, overreaction, one more call. Madcraft, what's up, man? MIA Madcraft.
I got a real short overreaction for you.
I don't believe that. Okay.
It's about the super regionals. Or the regionals entirely. And it kind of stands, it's more of a question overreaction, so y'all can answer it later. But in this situation, it was Alabama game 1 versus Miami. And they pitched out their ace pitcher. I believe JD's brought this up to you. They pitched out their ace pitcher. And he, in the first inning, had given up 3 runs. He was awfully off his mark. He couldn't pitch anything, right? So he had not eclipsed 24 pitches yet. My question is that 24 pitches and under, it would not require any rest day. So would it be a smart decision to go ahead and pull that guy in that first inning, game 1, and guarantee that you have your ace available for any point in the remainder of the regional? Or do you just let him continue and then you lose him? And the same thing happened to Miami in the super regionals. And in both cases, both of us went home. And both of us did not pull the guy.
Hey, real quick,
So
before you hang up, I think it's worthy to note that you do pull him if he doesn't have his stuff, because if you don't have your stuff, you don't have your stuff. Now, did you see where over the weekend, an MLB team did not start the starter. Instead, they threw a relief guy for the first for the first inning, and then they brought their starter in after that. Did you see that?
Well, yeah, but that's not new. In fact, the Tampa Bay Rays
It doesn't
were
happen
doing that
often,
for
right?
5 years. No, the Tampa Bay Rays were doing it for years. They actually made it a thing. If you go back 2 or 3 years ago, that's what the Tampa Bay Rays were doing every game.
Yeah. They were starting
you know,
somebody else and then bringing their starter in. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, I can't remember what the term was for it, but they had created a term for it. But anyways, I'll let y'all go.
Hey, real quick, one more question for you. Do the Braves suck?
They're not great.
Okay, thanks. All right, that's Madcraft. I get the last word that time. They're not great. They're not great, Diesel. They're not great.
When we come back, Cole, we had a chance earlier in the show because of scheduling to bring on the director of the BMW Charity Pro-Am.
Yeah, before the show.
And so coming up next, you're going to hear us talking to Michael, help me out, Cole, last name?
McGovern.
Michael McGovern. And we're going to play that back for you in the very next segment on the stream. Don't go anywhere because we're going to be popping up some photos and images of some of these celebrity players who were involved in this year's tournament. All that coming your way next.
now by the tournament director of the BMW Charity Pro-Am, Michael McGovern. You're listening to the Fan Upstate, and you're now listening to Michael McGovern on the Fan Upstate. Michael, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely, our pleasure. Just want to say, first of all, it was a fantastic weekend in the Upstate. Diesel and I, my co-host, we were both on location Thursday and Friday for our show at Thornblade Golf Club in Greenville. We were there last year as well, but this year, man, it was a fantastic job as always. I think it was the best one yet, Michael.
I mean, honestly, it's all about the community and the support. And I echo your statement about the best one yet. It's really the Thornblade Club and Carolina Country Club up in Spartanburg. They really showed out. The teams, the staffs of both facilities, Saeed Asadzandi and then Tim Dunlop and MT up at Carolina Country Club, just a really great, well-oiled machine now.
Michael, I have to tell you before I forget, this is kind of funny. This is not related to the tournament. Diesel and I will dive into the charity side of it in a second with you, but I don't know what kind of permission I have to get or how good of buddies I have to become with you. But I will tell you, sitting on the porch of Thornblade Golf Club Thursday and Friday, Michael, it was a bit tough for me, okay? I'm a bass fisherman, and looking out over those beautiful ponds on Thornblade Golf Club and not being able to throw a line, I will tell you, as a fisherman, it was tough.
Come Mondays, you usually see the kids with the bikes usually fishing these ponds. So, obviously not during the tournament, but, you can probably come over here on a sneak out on Monday.
Right.
All good.
Right. Michael McGovern, the tournament director of the BMW Charity Pro-Am. Michael, can you give our audience a behind the scenes on how you first got involved with this tournament?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up in golf. So I grew up in caddy as a caddy on Long Island and made my way to Columbus, Ohio, played lacrosse for Ohio State, and then was lucky enough to work at Muirfield Village Golf Club and joined H&S Sports Group there. And that's a tournament operator, professional golf tournament operator, and been in this business now for 25 years and love the Upstate. Moved here in 2016 and completely love the Upstate, the Southern hospitality, the understanding of what's best for everyone, the unselfishness, just the overall attitude of the folks in the Upstate. You go up to Spartanburg and everyone up there just wants to work with you, from the mayor to the city manager. Yeah. It's just so much fun. Fifth Third Park, Tyson, the new general manager up there, he can't be better.
Yeah.
And then a night in the Berg with Cole Swindell. Spartanburg really showed out for us, and it's just a lot of fun to, plan 11 and a half months out of the year for 2 weeks, and really having them come to a head yesterday with Austin Smotherman sinking a 50-foot putt to finish the deal off. And, it was really good because folks in the tournament world, we don't like playoffs. That means more time, more. It's like, no, we're done. Like, we're tired. We want to go home. So it's, being there at 4:00 wake-up calls, anything extra is not fun for us, right? You know what I mean? The crowd, it's good for the crowd, but it's not good for the operators.
Right, 100% with you. What is your, Michael, I didn't know you were a resident of the Upstate. I love that. I'm from Spartanburg. I echo everything you said about Tyson Jeffers and the Spartanburgers, Cole Swindell. I was there. I'm a big country music guy. It was awesome on Thursday night. What is your favorite part of the Upstate, Michael?
Well, I tell you what, it's tough to we partner with Discover South Carolina, so there's plenty of parks and recreation and tourism around here. I mean, Dwayne Parrish played in the tournament this year. You noticed a little additional activation with Discover SC. So we're super proud of partnering with them. Also, the counties of Spartanburg and counties of Greenville, they help us elevate the event. How about that, right? That's a nice way to put it because, with television packages and additional events coming to the cities, all that takes funding. And when we continue to showcase the product that we have, these communities, partners, and sponsors are realizing we do things the right way here at the tournament, and we're going to continue to provide value for our partners.
That's awesome, man. It really is. You talked about planning 11 months of the year. When you look at a tournament, Michael, like the BMW Charity Pro-Am, I mean, does it really take 11 months for somebody out there that doesn't know the behind the scenes in terms of the planning and everything that goes in? Because it is a big tournament.
We had 21 events that we call every event, whether it be the dog and jog, the 4K that we had out here at Thornblade Club, or the 25th anniversary celebration on Trade in Greer the Sunday before. We are now a 10-day tournament week, is what we call it, right? We're full of activities. We had yoga on the driving range. We had first tee clinics. We had adaptive golf clinics. It is all about extending the reach, the spiderweb effect of getting that next level to understand what we're trying to do here at the tournament and showcase the upstate the right way.
I love that. I really do. Let's get into the charity aspect of it, because that's what's most important with the celebrities and the golfers. The charity, I think that's the real value of this tournament. Can you go into depth on that?
They are the number one reason that is my drive every single day, is to understand how I can raise additional funds for our tournament partners. Whether it's Mobile Meals of Spartanburg, whether it's PAL, Play, Advocate, and Live Well up in Spartanburg, or it's the Neighborhood Cancer Connection, who we ran a ladies event on Monday and helped them raise $50,000 for their organization. So it's the charities. It's the charities. It's the charities. That's our drive. That's our understanding, and that's our why. And that's the reason why we continue to showcase. We want to raise funding for our tournament partners and our featured charities. So that is the entire tournament staff's goal, is to raise additional funding. We say that to our partners. We say that to our sponsors, and it's all about charity here.
Can you go into, Michael, maybe some stories to share with our audience, if when you talk about those charities, if you've ever been able to kind of see this thing come full circle? I mean, this tournament's been going on years now, but with your involvement, have you ever had some really cool stories where you have seen this come full circle in terms of what it does for the not just underprivileged, but all of the people who are benefiting from it?
I mean, listen, it's all about your neighbor, right? It's your uncle that lives here in town. It's your sister that lives on the other side of town. It's your elderly next-door neighbor that could use that meal for Mobile Meals. So it affects everyone. And that's why we love the broad range of featured charities that we have, is that we pretty much touch almost every sector, whether it's children, whether it's cancer, whether it's shut-ins and needing some emotional support. It's all about taking a look and working with Adela Mendoza at the Hispanic Alliance and introducing golf to a different demographic, right? So we do things differently here. We have signage in Spanish. We want to make sure that everyone feels welcomed, and that's what we should be doing. The things the right way.
I completely echo that. Absolutely love that. Get goosebumps hearing you talk about that. Kind of tailing off of that a little bit, Michael. We, for the first time, talked to Will Lowry on the radio at Thornblade on Thursday. And man, you talk about a guy who wants to grow the game of golf and do everything the right way, kind of like you just mentioned. I had never met Will Lowry before. Our audience had never heard from him. But having guys like that, I just say kudos to you guys, because he was a great addition to this year's team.
Well, listen, Will Lowry is a great young man. He doesn't know how to play golf cross-handed. He keeps on trying to. I don't know why, but he is such a good guy. He's part of the underrated tour. He works with Steph Curry. He's really trying to, and he's bringing these kids to really, really good golf courses. They're not going to the local muni. They're going to the Oakmonts of the world, where the U.S. Open is going to be. They were there last year. They're going to the Muirfield Villages of the world. They're going to the Congressionals of the world. These are the top 50 golf courses in the world. And these kids are gaining access and understanding, golf as a sport needs to change. And you can see it from the YouTube generation, the Grant Horvats that were here, the Will Lowrys, the Roger Steeles. Golf, the way people consume golf is changing. So we have to change with them.
Grant, it's Diesel here. Appreciate you joining us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. And you just brought up his name, Grant Horvat. When we were standing in the media, standing around the putting green and the driving range, there was a line 25, 30 kids deep. And I truly mean kids to meet Grant Horvat. That is where the young people are getting exposed to golf for the very first time. I mean, how Can you notice having a guy like that on your course and at your event changing the demographic of people who show up to attend?
Listen, now it's the kids telling the mom, I want to go to the tournament, not the parents dragging the kid to the tournament. So that's the complete flip. Now the kids want to be there. And seeing Grant and the way he acts and the way he speaks, he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't do drugs, he doesn't curse. He is someone that parents can say, oh, yeah, I don't have any problems with you watching that, because he's good. He's a good mentor. You say don't meet your heroes. He couldn't have been nicer. He was gracious with everyone. He took pictures with everyone. He signed autographs. He spoke with folks that wanted to have a quick word with them. He signed plenty of autographs for the young folks. But what the biggest thing is now, his YouTube channel. We're going to be on his YouTube channel, on his platform. We're going to have 10 million views.
Yeah.
That type of reach is not possible without somebody like a Grant Horvat, because of the way he continues to do things the right way.
Talking to Michael McGovern, tournament director of the BMW Charity Pro-Am. Now, I don't want you to get mean about it here, but can you tell us how many of the celebrity golfers out there were actually good golfers, and how many of them were out there hacking up the course this weekend?
Now, you want to talk about Aaron Hicks? That man can play golf. I mean, he's a +3 handicap, right? So he's losing 3 strokes to the field. So he has to make a minimum of 3 birdies every single round when he goes out in order to be equitable to everyone else that has a regular handicap. So, his golf is so good. He can hit the ball a country mile. There are guys, the pros were like, dude, you have talent. Why don't you do this? He's like, I don't want to travel anymore. I just want to play golf with my friends. So Aaron Hicks can definitely swing it. Grant obviously can sling it. Roger Steele is a heck of a golfer. But then you got the Larry the Cable guys and the Brian Baumgartners that do this for fun. And they're not going out there and competing and practicing nonstop. Larry the Cable guy won last year as an 18 handicap. Most folks are probably better than him. But at the same time, he does it for enjoyment, and he uses golf as an avenue to raise money for charitable causes.
Michael, can you talk about the future of the BMW Charity Pro-Am? Obviously, we talked about everything that it's accomplished so far, but I'm sure that you guys want to continue to make this thing bigger and better in the years to come.
Absolutely. So, obviously we raised over $16 million in the 25 years playing of the tournament. Wow. And, we have 2 more years in our contract. And everyone is looking at us saying, we have more years to come with the BMW, don't we? And BMW is the largest global sponsor in golf. And, I'm not going to say anything behind the scenes that I shouldn't say, but I know that BMW is certainly happy with this tournament being in the upstate and being able to showcase all the beauty, the residents, and, the partners. We have tremendous partners here. I think we're in an economic bubble. And it's so great to see the community just coming together for this tournament this past week.
Michael, we had a chance to catch up with Steve Smith Sr., a phenomenal wide receiver who played his professional ball just up the road from us in Charlotte. And he told us, he's like, man, I didn't really know anything about this tournament. I didn't even know this was happening down here. And it was, an hour away from where he played his professional ball, and was about 30 minutes away from the campus where he would come and do spring training every year. So how do you I know a lot of people in the upstate really love the thought and the idea of, you go out in the city of Greenville and you might bump shoulders and bump elbows with some celebrities. How do you push towards the celebrities who are here for these events to try to get them to go out in the city of Greenville and make themselves visible?
Yeah, absolutely. So we feed them breakfast and lunch, and we tell them they're on their own for dinner. And we'll be happy to make reservations at Hall's or Chop House or Gianna's. We'll be happy to support them in any of the Carl Sobozinski's restaurants or in Spartanburg at Delaney's or, Elsa's on the square. So it's, we want them out and about. We want them to be visible. We want that person to say, oh, I was having dinner at Hall's and Brian Baumgartner was sitting next to me. That story will be told the rest of her life. So it's fun to see these guys interact with the public especially in a relaxed atmosphere, because they know they're not going to get mobbed here. They know they might get an occasional picture. They might get an occasional thanks for coming. And they have to be good, upstanding individuals and knowing full well that we're fans here and they should be respectful. It's the pros, it's the celebrities that get it. We want folks that take the picture. We want folks that do the autograph. We've had celebrities that come here where they've only come for 1 year and they weren't invited back. So, we want the celebrities that know their role, and their role is to take the picture, sign the autograph, take that 5-minute conversation, and do the remember when. That's what's important to the individual. Oh, I was at this game. Oh, I was at this, I was at this baseball game. I was at this football game. The remember when conversation for those celebs, they do it all. And that's what's important to me.
Michael McGovern, tournament director for the BMW Charity Pro-Am. My last question here for you is, Thursday, Friday, when we were out broadcasting, we were seeing just some monster scores being put up, 5, 6, 7, 8 under for some of these rounds, even better than that. Thornblade is an absolutely gorgeous country club, gorgeous golf course. Any thoughts on how to make the course more difficult for a tournament like this? When you start putting pros out there, they can expose the quote-unquote weaknesses of a golf course, which actually are scoreable holes on these courses.
Well, you bring up a good point. Don't forget we have amateurs playing. So technically this golf course is not going to be set up very difficult because it will take forever for these amateurs to get around. So Thursday and Friday, you're right, the golf course is definitely set up a little easier than Saturday and Sunday. But, we have to get 160 golfers around each golf course in a timely fashion. So we do set it up. They do set it up a little easier Thursday and Friday. But I'll tell you, the pin on 18 yesterday where Austin Smotherman sunk that 50-footer, that pin was tucked. And that 18th hole is a monster. The golf courses themselves, it's all about the greens and their trueness, right? That's what the pros want to see. And Carolina Country Club and Thornblade Club, Jordan Strange did an excellent job here at Thornblade, and the greens were true.
Always appreciate you, Michael. Fantastic stuff, not only to you, but all of your team and the teams involved this past weekend. And we hope to continue to be a partner with you at the Fan Upstate for many years to come.
Without a doubt, guys. Love to have you here, and I definitely appreciate you spending some of your time with us at the tournament.
What all is happening in the sports world? It is a segment called Daily Wires. It's all the headlines, Diesel. I want to start off with Austin Smotherman shooting a final round 67 5 under to secure a 3-stroke victory at the BMW Charity Pro-Am over the weekend. Diesel taught him everything he knows, and that's why he is in the position he's in today.
Yeah, I teach him how expensive it is to lose a bunch of golf balls if you're not good at golf. So you might as well be good at it if you're going to be out here playing.
Congratulations to Austin there. The Atlanta Braves continue their losing ways. They were swept over the weekend by the Giants. They're now 27-37.
Swish,
it's bad.
swish.
Diesel 14 games out of first place, by the way. Yeah, it's getting bad.
It's okay if we just keep a positive
there we go.
mindset. We'll get them there. We'll get them where they need to be.
We'll get them there. The Hub City Spartanburgers split with Greensboro on the road last week. They're still winning, though, in terms of their record, 30-27. The Burgers will host Wilmington this week at Fifth Third Park. So, an opportunity for you, Tolos and Spartanburg, or in the upstate to watch.
Series starts tomorrow.
That's right, tomorrow, Tuesday. Hopefully none of this rain, but it came down during that last segment.
Yeah, we can't see out of the studio anymore.
No, we can't. How about Jair Alexander? Not with the Packers anymore, an all-season long saga. The two could not find the middle ground. Where will Jair Alexander go? That'll be really interesting. 4-time Pro Bowl running back Nick Chubb expected to sign a 1-year deal with Houston, Texas, sources told ESPN. We talked about this earlier, Diesel. Oklahoma City defeated Indiana last night, 123-107, covering the 11.5-point spread and have even the series at 1. Game 2 of the final set for Wednesday at 8:30. A big win for the Thunder.
Yeah, winner of this game, winner of Game 3 after a 1-1 series start wins about 80% of the time, wins the series about 80% of the time.
Big.
So this game is crucial.
How about Coastal Carolina, man? In-state Chanticleers were the first team in the NCAA postseason to punch their ticket to the College World Series. Diesel called for it. Now they've got to win, 4 or 5 more, right?
SBC.
I love
SBC.
I love
SBC.
it. Coastal, man. Really, really fun to watch them. Kevin Schnall, who doesn't love Kevin Schnall? We'll see how far Coastal can go, hopefully all the way. Stanley Cup Finals evened at 1 on Friday. The Panthers defeated the Oilers 5-4 in double OT. Game 3 tonight, 8 p.m. Diesel, who wins tonight, Oilers or Panthers?
Give me the Oilers. Please knock those dirty Panthers out of the tree or perch, or I don't know where Panthers sleep.
Yeah, I'm going to go opposite of you. Since you went Oilers, I'll go Panthers tonight on home ice. Game 3. Longhorns claim victory on Friday night, winning their first ever Women's College World Series, defeating Texas Tech by a score of 10-4. Only one game tonight, college baseball, Murray State Duke. Boston Red Sox, not Sox.
Say that again?
Not Sox. Sorry, I offended a Boston Red Sox fan out there. Have called up outfielder Roman Anthony, their top 3A prospect. Diesel, he was the one you talked about last week doing what?
Hiding in laundry carts to get away from autograph hounds.
Oh, that you can't beat that. A couple more real quick at you. In case you missed it, Aaron Rodgers, officially a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. A 1-year deal up to $10 million, $10 million guaranteed, can be worth up to 19.5 with incentives. So that is one more NFL piece of news for you. Let's see. Ryan Fox of New Zealand won for the second time in 5 weeks on the PGA Tour, Diesel. Canadian Open, the winner goes to Ryan Fox, and we talked about it. U.S. Open this weekend.
We got a major on our hands.
Major, baby. Yeah. Denny Hamlin wins last night in Michigan. Your early lean as we run to a break for the U.S. Open winner. Can Bryson go back-to-back?
No, I don't think Bryson's head is screwed on right now. I mean, he'll I think he'll finish in the top 10.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have Bryson pushing for the win. Coming up next, we'll play.
Well, we've got conversation, Diesel. We got a conversation about NCAA video games, EA Sports.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What is this you're talking about here?
A new way, yet another way that revenue will be distributed amongst teams that you, the gamer, get to help decide. That's next.